proper setups to us. And scanning is an easy way to do that. You just need to find out which type of investing works for you. Are you comfortable buying new highs? Are you looking for stocks turning up off lows? Things like that. I will suggest that you keep it simple on scanning. One of the big problems we typically have is that as we scan, we get pulled into different types of trading, and we continue to confuse ourselves. The best types of traders are the people who have their setups, they wait for them, as soon as they occur, they put the trade on, and then once that trade executes, they let it ride up, and if they're wrong, they know where they're wrong, and they get out of the trade to minimize losses and capture gains. So we're going to talk about that. Scanning for highs. So the reason that people scan for stocks breaking out to new highs is that because all of the investors that own it are happy. And when they're happy, that usually allows the stock to work higher. Now, other people aren't comfortable buying the new highs. And so it really depends on your investing style, what you like to do. In order to scan for stocks that are down and are starting to turn back up, you need something to help us find that. We need to either move back above a 20-day moving average, or we need an indicator that starts to turn up, and maybe it's a daily time frame, a weekly time frame. Those are all different things, and so we need to work with that. And then scanning from existing chart lists. One of the things that you might have is you might have a list of energy stocks, and then as energy starts to improve, you'd want to get into that, or it's biotech stocks, and as the biotech ETF starts to turn up, you want to start to look for some of the outperformers. And so we can do that if we have chart lists made up that already have contents related to one industry or a group of stocks, and then we can scan from that. And the last concept that we need to make sure we cover off today is understanding and or. And what we mean by that is when a stock is above 75 on the SCTR ranking, it is also above 81 on the SCTR ranking. The difference would be if we wanted to scan for a stock crossing above 75 or crossing above 80, we need to use an OR command. And so the idea being, if you know what you want to look for, so you can say I want to look in this chart list or this chart list, and then you could use other things like I want the PPO to be greater than 0 or less than 5%, something like that. So you can use a range, and we need to find how to structure that in the scan. So we're going to cover that off today, and hopefully you'll find it very valuable. So let's jump over into the charts. And one of the things that Stock Charts has is the predefined scans. And what you can do on a predefined scan, I'm just going to take you there. So we have all of these scans already laid out, and you can go get this scan code. And the way you would get it is you literally just click on one of those predefined scan results, and then you would click here to edit the scan. Okay, and when you do that, it's going to bring up the exact scan that was there, and in this case it's a stock looking for a daily high greater than yesterday's daily max for 253 days, which is typically 1 year, and looking for the daily high. So the daily high of those previous 253 days. When we run that scan, what that's going to do is give us new stocks that are breaking out to a high on that day. As an example. So just to make sure we understand that, we're going to, if we started on the Stock Charts homepage, and I usually just go to the dashboard, and then from the dashboard, the scan engine is down here, and to get to predefined scans, you can go and click this button here, and that would take you straight into the page. So again, scanning, we're looking for an event, and I'm just going to go grab a chart here on the right hand side of the chart. And what we might be looking for is either the stock making a new 20-day high, or the stock making, moving above a moving average, or an indicator starting to turn up giving us a potential buy signal, all of these things are scannable, and then what we want to watch for in general is that when we get our scan results, they're never going to give us the perfect stock. We have to still go through and visually edit the stock. Like in this case, you know, perhaps you like stocks that have pulled back. Well, this isn't a pullback. This is down 50% from its highs. That's different, and it all depends what you want to scan for. So we need to make sure that as we work through our scans, we find that difference between the types of stock we want to own. Okay, so I've got a few set up here, and this is an example of a stock that we're looking at, or a scan we're looking at. And what we've got here is I want to scan for a stock, and the country is US, and I want to scan for a daily volume. Now you can just go in and edit this, and anything that's in color is live, so that's what the scan engine is going to work. And if I don't want it to look for something, so let's say I don't care if it has a dividend, I would just stroke this out, and now this line isn't going to be acted on. It's going to be a comment for the scan engine to ignore. But if I take it and it's showing up in color, that means that the scan is going to activate on that. So that's good. Now, in this case, I've also chosen a couple of other things. I don't want stock charts technical ranking to be less than 40. And the reason for that is a stock that's that weak. I probably, you know, usually when stocks are weak, they stay weak, and until they start to improve, it can take a long time. So trying to find stocks that are at least close to the top half of the investing universe would be a little better. And in this case, I want to limit the yields that it shows me by 4%, and I want to rank the results by that. So when I hit run scan, it's going to go find those things. So a couple of things are key here. First of all, up on the first clause of whatever you have, there can't be anything. In this case, there's the word and on every other clause. If I had and there, it wouldn't be able to handle that. So looking through these, when we want to run our scan, we click run. It's always going to open another tab, and over here on the right hand side you can see that it's ranked it by yield, which is great, but the bigger issue on this ranking is that when we save it to a chart list, it's not going to save this unless we specify that. So we would say store these results in a new chart list or in an existing chart list and just change it. So one of the things I like to do is I have a whole bunch of scanning chart lists that I can dump into, and in this case I just say I want to dump it into this whatever John scan, and if I preserve the sort order, it's going to keep the yield. Now it's not going to show me the yield anymore, but it's going to keep the yield, keep the stocks organized that way, and on the name here it's going to put a number, a 0010, 0020, so that we can see that it's maintained this scan order. So now it's opening that same scan file, and again we want to sort it by the ranking system, and all of these, this would have the best yield in this particular case. So if we wanted to find a stock with strong yields, the ones with the biggest yield numbers are going to be closest to the top of this list, and the ones with smaller yields would be obviously at the bottom of the list. Now you can also look for a strong stock based on the scooter ranking, and you know that it has a high scooter ranking. You can look over on the left hand side and try to find one of the numbers closest to the top of the list. So here's NGL Energy. It's got a scooter ranking of 88.2, and it was one of the top, well in this case the 11th stock on that list, and we could go either just look at it this way, and there we'd have a stock in a strong uptrend with a high dividend. So we can look for multiple things on here. It doesn't have to be something specific to the price of the stock, and that's what makes it helpful, is when we can use these different tools. Okay, so one of the other concepts about scanning that's pretty important is, let's say that every week I want to run this scan, and last week I was on a beach vacation or whatever. What you can do is you can just go start 5 days ago and update that, and when you do that, it's going to have moved it to this other date, and so the scanning would be based on that time frame, and again, you can go back a long time, but you could try to find stocks from last week or this week just by changing this little parameter up here. So I'm going to leave it 0 trading days from the current day. I'm recording this on June the 18th. But when you make that change, you also have it so it'll do the last intraday update or the last market close. And so when scanning during the day, you have to decide if you just want yesterday's close or if you want the intraday action from today to affect your scan. So those are just a couple of things to get us going. Again, just to highlight, nothing at the beginning of the first scan. Everything needs to be in these square brackets, and this is very easy to set up. A lot of the information that we're looking for here is all available by going down here and choosing these properties down below. So as an example, let's say that we only wanted large cap stocks. We could go pick SCTR.large and add that. It's always going to put it at the end, but the idea for us is we'd want to move it so that it's up higher. Rank by has to be the last factor in the scan engine. And the other thing is when you use rank by, you don't use an and in front of rank by. So these are two things, the first one and this rank by, that don't get anything preceding it. And then when we set up these brackets, you can see how it automatically put this, or when we went and got this from the scan components down here, it automatically put the word and, the square brackets and everything on it. You don't have to use it as it is. You can just go in and type this and put 75 or 30 or whatever, whatever you'd like, and then you could just delete this as an example. Anything you want to do, feel free to go in and manipulate the information. Obviously the stuff in orange here is stuff that you could quickly change. The rest is proper formatting just to get the scan engine to run. So as we go through the scan tools, there's a bunch of different things I'd like to show you. And in this example, the first scan I showed you was with Predefined Scans, and again, let's just go to the home page of the dashboard. When you start your scan, you're going to go down into this area in here, and you either select a pre-made scan or pick a predefined scan, or open the advanced scan workbench to start from scratch. I think it's easier to start with something. So again, I would go into predefined scans. I would pick something volume related if that's what you wanted. And then I would click here to edit this scan. And that's going to take you into a scan engine. It's going to already have some clauses. And then you can decide if you want to keep or change that and work with that. In this case, this scan is looking for the volume that is stored to 4 times the normal daily volume. So a pretty simple little scan, but something that we might like to add to. So then down here, we can also say that we only want to scan stuff in a specific chart list, and perhaps, I always talk about commodities. So let's say that I wanted to scan for gold miners, or I wanted to scan under semiconductors. So here's the semiconductor list, and when we do that, we have to hit this add button and then go up here, and you'll see that it's added this to it. Now, one of the things to think about in your scan engine is how hard you're making, how long the scan engine has to work. So example, you don't want to scan the whole universe for a stock above $5. Obviously, that's going to give you an entire list of stocks. What you'd rather scan for is all large cap stocks, so you'd limit it to say 1,000, or you could scan for small caps by using the scooter ranking, either the large, small, medium. But try and control the width of your scan before you start getting into the intricacies. So as an example, you don't want to go calculate the Ichimoku cloud for every stock and then scan and then ask it to find something that has just broken out on the Ichimoku cloud. What you'd rather do is say, out of the group of the S&P 500, let's go find that. And so how would you get that list? Well, you can go into this index, ETF, and you can just select the S&P 500 and you would add that. Now, perhaps you want to do it on your favorites list of semiconductors one time, and then the next time you want to use the S&P 500. The way to do that is to take this information and either put it right up at the very beginning, right? So we want to put group is S&P 500, and we're just going to move it up here, and then we can get rid of this type is stock, because obviously it's a stock, and we don't really care if it's on the New York or on the NASDAQ exchange. And then from this, we want to just kind of work through and make sure that we've got everything the way we want it. Now, you can be a group of S&P 500 and favorites, which isn't really going to work, because obviously not all of the S&P 500 is semiconductor, so we want to take that out. Now, if we want to run this scan just against semiconductors, we would do the same thing I did here, and we have two choices for this. We could either go up here and copy all of this, and then we could put it in here and just say to drop it in here. So now I'm going to run this scan with whatever's colored, and in this case it's the S&P 500, but if I also want to just watch for unusual volume activity on the semiconductors, then I would go and I would just get this scan and get rid of all of this stuff at the beginning. So now I'm controlling it to my list of semiconductor stocks, and now I'm looking for unusual volume in that chart list. So whenever I'm working with the scan engine, I'm trying to narrow its width, in this case to the S&P 500, in this case to my list of semiconductors, and if I went to get a gold list, it could be whatever. Now, these chart list numbers are randomly selected by stock charts when you create a new chart list. So your semiconductor list won't be named 87, it'll be named something different. And if you just go down here again and choose your specific chart list, you can see that they all have different numbers, and you're welcome to just pick the one you want. So by taking that information and combining it into the scan, when you run that scan, in this case, there's no semiconductors that had 4 times the unusual volume today, as an example. Now we could go look and we could say, okay, well, what about, did the S&P 500 have any of that? And we could just quickly run the scan that way and see if that happened, and there were none there as well. So what we could also do is we could have just kept our, just scan for across the New York Stock Exchange, and the way we would do that is just say, exchange is equal to, and we want to add that, is NYSE, and so then we would put this information up at the top and scan just into that group and see if we could get a result of something that was flying on high volume. So we run that scan and just see what it pops up, and over here, here's our scan results. So there were 11 stocks with high volume, and you can see the names here. And then you would quickly put it into a chart list by storing it in new results, or merging it with another chart list, or replacing an existing chart list. I strongly recommend you keep a bunch of scan chart lists just to dump things into, take a look at them, get rid of them. So I think Sotheby's is being bought out, so that's the reason it was soaring today. But here's Vanguard Mega Cap Growth ETF. Showing high scooter ranking and very high volume today. Now the high volume is only 72,000, but it still shows a group of people moving into that at a higher rate than they have been. And here's the mid cap 3 times bull shares, lots of people showing up to try and buy that one. There's all different kinds of reasons that people might be jumping into a stock, and maybe this Tempur-Pedic down at the bottom here has something in it that we want to look at. So it's really important to try and, again, just choose what you like to look for. If it's unusual volume, then you're going to use this scan. But always feel free to use those predefined scans to start your scan approach. Okay, so one of the things that, in this case, new 52-week high that was not at a new 52-week high yesterday. and this is pretty basic stuff, but 2 days ago it wasn't. And then the other approach you have is to scan for something that is has some sort of an indicator ranking with it. And so in this particular case, I just went and grabbed one of my scans, and this scan does not wait until the indicator has triggered. It just notes when a stock has gotten oversold, and then you could go set a trigger for it. So as an example, my favorites list, so my own chart list, is 8, and then it says the SCTR ranking is greater than 75 and less than 81. Now when I run this scan, that means the SCTR ranking will have to be above 75, so 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, in order to be included in my scan results. Now let's just say that it generated a large list. Well, then I could go in here and I could define, by taking off this, I could just go pick up for large cap stocks and do that one at a time. If I wanted to do both large cap and small cap, then I would just change this "or," and then I have to put brackets around an "or." So I'm going to have to go like this. And the reason is because now what we want to do is we're scanning for the difference between these two chart lists. So it's either in the large cap and it's greater than 90, or the mid cap and it's greater than 90, and not the small caps, whatever you want to do. The idea behind it is just allowing us to control the functionality by using those different options. And again, the only thing that the scan editor is going to act on is anything highlighted in color. And up here I just wrote up a description. So again, we're looking for, in this case, we're looking for a scooter ranking that is pulled back, and then it's not going to work with these settings of greater than 90, because up here I've asked for it to be between 75 and 81. So I'm just trying to show you different options, but you need to have one or the other, but not both of those, because obviously it can't be greater than 90 and under 81. So these are different variables that I would look for. And again, what we want to do is, if the scooter ranking is between this area, it doesn't mean we want to buy it yet, but it might mean it's something that we want to look at. And then we'll set up another signal. Maybe it's a full stochastic starting to cross, or maybe it's the PMO starting to turn up, or maybe price moving above a moving average, whatever it is. And we can set an alert or another scan to run on that. So again, just trying to give you some ideas of ways to find these. And here's one that I've used. And what this does is I want to find the SCTR crossing above 76. And the issue is that means it's got to cross above a line in the sand. It's got to cross above a specific place. Well, obviously it can't cross above 76 and 78 and 80 all on the same day, unless it's a huge move, and you'll have a few of those. But the idea would be that you kind of want to catch it as it's crossing up through each of these. So in this case, I'm using an "or" command. So I want it to cross above 76 or 78 or 80. I want it to check my favorites list and go run that scan. So then when I run the scan, in this case, I've nothing in there, that's fine. I could change this to obviously be, some other favorites list. Just go get one and put that in there and run the scan. But the concept of using "or" is to try and encompass when you wanted to look for a few things that are similar in the same type of scan, and then you would add this extra bracket. Now, if I take out a bracket and I say check syntax, it will say there's mismatched square brackets. So it's shown me which line has the problem, and it's told me that I need to make sure that the number of brackets are equal, and in this case I've got 2 on one end, so I have to add it on the other. This isn't really hard stuff. It's telling me where to go look, and it's telling me to fix something on that line. So when you're looking for scans, the important thing to be aware of is this isn't really hard. You can go and grab predefined scans, or you can make them up based on the patterns you want. And you can scan for a bullish engulfing candle, but the biggest thing that I would encourage you to do is always try to control your group size. You don't want to scan the whole world and get a chart, a scan result of 900. You want to scan either large cap stocks or small cap, whatever's your fancy, but limit it to the type of stocks you like to normally look at. Maybe they're in the technology sector, you can go pick that. And in order to define a specific sector, you would just use this drop-down menu. And, in this case, let's say technology is the one you want to find. There's some highlighted headings here, and then you can see the different groups within them. Well, maybe it's all of the technology, so then you would just add this group to your list and put that up at the top, so it's one of the first things you're scanning for, and then work through your scan that way. Okay, so the other thing to be aware of is that you can also scan for, I had pulled it up, I think. Let me just look. This was a scan I just made up, so maybe that's not it. I have a scan that I like to run, and the scan just looks for a monthly breakout. And what this scan will do is, even if you're middle of the month, is it will go through and look for the countries, the US, so it's not going to give me Canadian, UK stocks or India stocks. I can specify the exchange, the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, and if I don't care, then I would just comment it out. But what I want to look for is this month high is greater than last month's max high, and the close is greater than $5. So if any time this month the stock is higher than the previous month, I'd like that list. So not just from today, but any time in the last few days. And the benefit of scanning for that, as you might imagine, is that when you go look at the results, in this case, I've got too many stocks. I got 500. They won't even fit into a list. But it'll help you just find things breaking out to new highs, and it doesn't have to happen today. So if the market day was a down day, you wouldn't, you might not find that many stocks breaking out to a new high. The benefit would be you can do this at any time, and it's just going to find stocks somewhere in the last 12 months that made this new high. So in this case, it was today. Let's just go back and just see if whatever, randomly picking something else. Here's McDonald's. It made a new high a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And so that kind of change, it allows you to go look for this stock. Now you see the consolidation and maybe you want to buy it. What we're trying to find is, somewhere in here the stock had run up and then it's breaking down, and you're trying to find something that made a new high. Well, it's not going to show you that this month was better than last month, and this scan here won't show up because the high never got through. So hopefully, to give you some ideas, those are just different ways to go. But I would encourage you to do that, and always, always, always on the scan engine at the bottom here are instructions, writing scan, and scan examples. Try to use those to help you work through different things, but lots of examples are in there. Thanks for taking the time to join me. Bye-bye.